Okay, so Dan's going to bring up the star mentees, and while we're setting up for that, a couple weeks ago, Dan, we had a discussion. I didn't hear that question, but that you should not be running these businesses. You should bring somebody in and manage.
Correct.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, some of you are going to pretend that you're CEO material, and you're not. A handful of you are CEO material because you're CEOs of real companies. But if you're not a CEO of a real company, then why chance it? If it's for the 5% that you're going to give away to a CEO, that's cheap money. That's cheap equity. And you shouldn't be concerned. Most of the kids are concerned about giving away equity. How many of you have played Monopoly before? Everybody, right? Monopoly money. And I'm not telling you to mismanage it because it's not your money. I'm not telling you to commit malfeasance because it's not your money. But it's not your fucking money. It's Monopoly money. But most of the kids, again, as I said maybe an hour and a half ago, can't manage their way out of a wet paper bag. Why would you think all of a sudden you've been an engineer at Ford Aerospace for 25 years. You've been a senior manager. Now all of a sudden you're a CEO? What are you smoking? Give me some of that shit. As long as it's not addictive. Not since I've had one marijuana cookie now in my life, which makes food taste awful fucking good. I'm licking my lips just thinking about it. But no, that's the biggest mistake is they try to be CEO and they try to manage. Now we're going to have three, and Bruce is going to stay here because he's on the Hall of Fame as well. We're going to have three of my mentees come up. We're going to start with Brian QLA Rose. Next, we're going to have Marcus Bauer. And affectionately called Bavarian Bob, but Robert Mayer. You look awful serious, Robert. He really loves Bavarian Bob more than Robert, but if you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you in Oberammergau. Okay, now these guys and Bruce Whipple are on the Hall of Fame for various and sundry reasons. That they've created a lot of money, mostly for themselves. But not totally. And if you want a save the world mentality, you know, go hug the trees. These guys are much more at that end of the continuum than I am, except for Marcus, because Marcus used to cut down the trees. He was in the lumber business, and still is actually. Yeah. And I've known Robert Mayer about 12, 13 years. 2010, 10 years. I've known Marcus Bauer about the same time, 2010. In fact, Robert was the translator at the first one or two seminars. Didn't you help him with his English? No? Well, I'm having a dementia moment, okay. And then Brian Rose, who I've known almost 6 years now, who interviewed me and introduced me to social media. Now, I, like some of the other Neanderthals, thought social media was a joke and didn't spend any time on it whatsoever. And in the first interview that Brian did, and we've done subsequent interviews 5 or 6 times, and he's done a documentary about our relationship, etc. But I just had discounted it totally. Now, I'm not the only Neanderthal that discounted it totally. But when I decided, or was not forced into, but exposed to social media through Brian Rose's efforts, it gave me another 5 years, 6 years of life as a coach, a mentor, to be able to preach, if you will, the QLA methodology. And I've been viewed literally hundreds of millions of times, most of which has come through London Real, and other luminaries have picked me up, so to speak, and I've had a lot of stuff go viral. I didn't know what that meant in 2000 or 2014. I now think I know what it means. Now, and that's unusual because Sally and I have been on the internet since the late 90s. We bought, remember, you can buy revenue cheaper than create it. One of our mentees' business, he wanted to fade himself out from notoriety. And so at one time, we were one of the biggest advertisers on Google. But social media part, I just missed completely. I didn't want to be an old dog learning new tricks. Now, arguably, I know a lot about social media. But I know that it has extended my lifeline as a coach. And I'm at easily the top of my game right now. And the top of my game for me is creating tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and even billions with you kids. Now, I'd like each one of them to say something. There's no script. We're not opening it up to questions, so don't, be raising your hand. But Brian Rose.
Yes. What's up, everybody? Well, Dan, I think everybody can kind of witness my journey with QLA by watching my wardrobe over the past 6 years and my facial hair. But Dan came on my show, and we published him on Easter Sunday, which he'll never let me forget, in 2014. And as many of you probably seen that show, he pushed me, and he's been pushing me ever since. I went to the Castle about 6 months later, and I just recently went back to the Castle for QLA Hardcore. And it was great to go back after 5 years because it just showed me again what Dan is all about, which is demanding more from me, period. And we all get in these comfort zones, and before I met Dan, everyone said how great London Real was and how great I was. But Dan came in and said, Brian, is this really great? Is this really the best you can do? Are you going to be happy dying with this? And part of me deep down inside, and that's probably why you're all here, part of you deep down inside knows you're not doing everything you could be doing. And you could be great, something great. And that's what Dan's taught me. And when I got back from the first QLA, you saw everything about me change, from my dress to my studio to my aggressiveness in business and my appetite for risk. That's what it's all about. And I was just at the Castle a few days ago, and Dan said one line which pretty much epitomizes my journey over the last 6 years, and that's this, and I think he's quoting the late Ross Perot, is that success is on the razor's edge of failure. And Dan also says whenever he meets an entrepreneur that says everything is great, he doesn't believe him, and neither do I. Because if you're a successful anything in life, nothing's ever great, because you're on the razor's edge. You're putting it all on the line. You are risking things constantly in order to have mega success. And that's what Dan taught me as an engineer, to literally engineer risk into my life. And so I still need to always be reminded, but that's what he taught me. And so now when I wake up in the morning, I say, how can I introduce risk into my life? Because I know my default is to run away from risk. So that's been the biggest change for me. The latest hardcore blew my mind even more. And now I've gotten back to London, and my dreams are 100x bigger than they were. So I can't wait to get in and play with these new tools. And you've all kind of watched this whole journey, and it's been documented. And that's what I get out of QLA.
And before we give them a round of applause, we're all risk averse. The only difference is I know that I have to drop it into low gear and jump into the wheels. and I have since I was a little kid. But we're all, nobody, the two things in life that are pretty much assured. Nobody likes risk and nobody likes rejection. Myself included. But when the risk dial is tuned up and I jump in, I euphemistically say, run towards the gunfire and kill everybody. When rejection, and I don't get rejected that often anymore, but once in a while I do, I know that I've got to go headstrong into whatever is causing that rejection. And I'm a good enough salesman, unlike you are now, that I can turn deals. I can be rejected by a bank and then convince them. And this is also online, my speech about convincing them. But nobody, the greatest icons that ever walked were, feared rejection and risk. So that's natural. It's what you do. And one of the comments I made that differentiated me from most is my dad taught me that it's not how we, it's not what happens to us in life, it's how we interpret what happens to us in life. And I was just either foolish enough, naive enough, or some people would say stupid enough, since I stood with a dunce cap in a good part of my formative years, that I'm not smart enough to know that this is a risky situation. Now, when the buffalo ran over me, I knew, but of course I didn't plan for the fucking buffalo to run over me. That happened because of a bunch of other serendipity. Okay, Brian Rose.